Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com and welcome to today's project. I'm going to show you how I created this Mondrian art technique. There are three versions, one at a beginner's level, one as a casual crafter's level, and this one is the avid crafter's version. To start with, the beginner's version only uses the stamp set. The card base is the same for all three cards. So basically it's half an A4 sheet. So in Europe this will measure 5 7/8 by 8 1/4 inches. And in whatever market you're in, according to your card size, you just cut it 1/4 of an inch smaller all round. So for the beginner's version, I simply cut a square that measured 1 7/8 by 1 7/8. Then I placed the square onto the cardstock, like so, and I drew an 1/8 of an inch around the square, and then used a scissors and cut it up to make this pattern. Okay, so then the black from the basic card base will show through. Then I simply stamped the daisy in early espresso, and this is a two-step stamping method, so there's a solid image that fits over the inside to fill in the colour. I then stamped the same daisy on a piece of post-it note or masking paper, and then cut inside the lines, and then place that over the flower before stamping my leaves, so that the leaves would appear behind the flower, like so. And then I simply stamped the greeting down here in early espresso, and here's the inside of the card. I stamped it with this image here, which is just a solid image, and then I used a Stamp and Write marker and placed little dots in there for the flower centres. In version 2, I stamped that separately and then fussy cut it, curled the leaves with the bone folder and adhered it with dimensionals, and then virtually the same thing, but I added a matte layer, which is extra cardstock, and this piece measures 2 1/8, I think, 2 1/8 by 2 1/8 square in the middle. Then the leftover from having cut these pieces here, I put in the middle, and then I fussy cut that and put it up on dimensionals and added some rhinestones. So that's version 2. The one we're going to be making is actually version 3. I used the Stylish Shapes dies, and counting from the inside outwards, 1 being the smallest, there's 5 dies in the square nest, so I used number 3 to die cut the square from the center of this card. Okay, and I want to make sure that this is central, so I'll use the grid paper to make sure that this is in the middle and that this is equidistant on either side. Anchor it down with some washi tape to make sure that the die doesn't move. And I'll go and die cut that off camera and I'll be back. So before I go any further, let's run through the other items you need. Like I said before, the card base is half an A4 sheet. In Europe, this will be 5 7/8 by 8 1/4 inches, or 14.5 by 21 centimeters. For the inside of the card, this is the same as your lemon lolly layer for the card front. It's also cut at 3 3/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and in metric that will be 9.5 centimetres by 14 centimetres. You need a scrap of wild wheat in order to cut the matte layer here, but I won't gauge how big that is until after I've cut these pieces here. You also want a scrap of basic white to stamp your flowers and die cut them, and also to stamp the sentiment and fussy cut that. The inks I'm using are Early Espresso, Garden Green and Lemon Lolly. This is a new core colour in the Subtles collection. I'm also going to be using a Stampin' Write marker to fill in the flower centres on this stamp here. There isn't a stamp in the set that is small enough to do that, so one way of getting around it is by using the journaling end of the Stampin' Write marker to create that effect. Basic rhinestone jewels. It's a good idea to do a template first so you know where you're cutting, because the last thing you want to do is cut it wrong. So what I've done is I've put the line of this internal cut along the edge of the dark groove. Okay, so align it there, and I put it along one of these horizontal lines to make sure that I am cutting straight. So you don't want to see that dark grey line. And then you cut, use that as your guide, and you want to cut from this 2-inch mark down to the bottom. Okay. Then turn the paper round. So again, this straight edge, align it up with the groove, align this end, this bit with the horizontal line on there. And looking at the card, again, this is a right angle here, so therefore you want your blade only up there on this horizontal line here. Okay, and then you cut all the way down. So that gives you your first corner. Now I'm going to get a pencil and I'm going to write on the back, top right, and an arrow saying where it's pointing. Okay, so it just makes it easier when you come to glue the pieces onto your card base, which piece is which and what orientation you should glue it at. Now, taking the time and trouble to do that initially, it will save you a lot of heartache afterwards. Now you want to cut this piece, so again that has to be at a right angle. So you want to cut, this is the right angle here, so you want to cut from here down to there. Okay, put your blade at the 3-inch mark here, or just above it, and then cut all the way down. So now this will give you your top left, right? Top left. Now you want to turn your cardstock so that this is covering the grey portion there, and that's on the line here, and you want to cut from that line. I'd cut it a little bit down because you haven't got anything to anchor it onto, and then cut all the way down. Right, and then you can snip that off with your scissors, and that gives you your left side. So let's mark that left side, and then this will be your bottom right. So I'll just use the scissors to do that, and lost my pencil. Bottom right. Now bring back our card front, and we want to glue these in. So that's your side, that's your top left, and that's your top right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put adhesive on here, and then allow it to dry so that it's repositionable, and then I can add glue, extra glue on it afterwards. So I've got my little square there, and I'm going to make it about 1/4 of an inch larger. So let's measure that. That's 1 7/8, so 2 1/8. So I'm going to put temporary adhesive on this as well and allow that to dry too. While that's drying, I'll do a bit of stamping for the inside of the card with this stamp here. And that's Lemon Lolly, and then use my marker pen, and then where the flower centres are, just do little dots. Glue this to the inside of the card. Then on a scrap piece of card, basic white, I'm going to stamp the outline first, followed by the solid image. I'm going to do that again because the trouble with them, when you're filming and standing up, it's harder to stamp, and you're sort of mindful about not getting your head in the camera. That's better. Then stamp the flower centre in early espresso. Then swap ink pads and stamps, and I'm going to stamp off and stamp 3 leaves. And if you want a bit of variation, then when you stamp off, just only partially stamp, and then part of your leaf will be darker than the other part. I cut these off camera and I'll be back. Curl the leaves. Pop a dimensional on the back, stick it in the middle. Put some glue on the back of the leaf, and then you can insert it in here underneath the flower. That's dry, so I'm just going to pop some dimensionals on the back of this. Centre it on wild wheat square, like so. Bring back my card base. Use the grid lines to help you centre that. Now I can pop that and centre it so that it's there in the middle. Bring back my pieces, so this is the top left. I want to have it round about there. So I want that in line with this and parallel to that. So this is the top right. So I can move that down a bit now so that it's more or less equidistant. That's why I've put the glue on, so that it's repositionable. You might have to make minor adjustments. That's in line with this bit here. And then last of all, this piece. Just add a bit more adhesive on the ends. Oh, I forgot my sentiment have to stamp that in early espresso. Oops. And then fussy cut it. So again, angle your scissors at a 45-degree angle. Move your paper, not your scissors. So I've put dimensionals on the back, and we can just adhere it to this bit here. Last of all, bring back the rhinestones and pop some there. Oh bother, I forgot to record it. I've added some rhinestones. So that's how you make the Mondrian art technique. That's the inside, and there's your basic and your stepped up version, and this is your avid version. They'll all be on my blog, so do pop over and have a look if you'd like more details. All the list of supplies are below this video in the show more section, and I'll be back with more inspiration next time. If you like this tutorial, do give me a thumbs up, I'd be ever so grateful, and like and share. Thanks for watching. Bye.